She flashed her lights behind me like she owned the street. Red and blue strobes mounted on her golf cart. Can you believe that? I was heading home after a 12-hour shift, uniform still on, badge tucked under my jacket, when I saw her waving a clipboard in the middle of the road. Pull over, she screamed, like she was some kind of law enforcement. At first, I thought maybe there'd been an accident in the neighborhood. But then she yelled again, you're speeding in an HOA zone. Step out of the vehicle. I slowed down, rolled the window halfway, and tried not to laugh. Ma'am, who are you exactly? I asked. She puffed up like a balloon, holding out a fake-looking badge that said, Neighborhood Enforcement Officer. My eyes nearly rolled out of my head. This is private property, she snapped, and you're in violation of HOA Code 14B, unauthorized vehicle use. Her tone had that same chill I've heard from rookies trying to sound tough. I told her calmly, this is my neighborhood. I live here, and I'm pretty sure fake badges are a felony. That only made her angrier. She slapped her clipboard against my window and shouted, step out or I'll call backup. Backup? From where? The clubhouse. Before I could even answer, another golf cart rolled up, with two guys in neon vests and walkie-talkies. She pointed at me like I was some criminal on the run. This man is refusing lawful orders. I stepped out of my truck slowly, not because I was scared, but because I was done playing along. She pointed her phone camera right at my face. Smile for the record, officer, she said mockingly. The HOA doesn't tolerate reckless driving. That was the moment my patience snapped. I reached into my jacket, pulled out my real badge, and let it shine under her camera light. The way her smile vanished was priceless. I am the law on this highway, I said quietly, and this street falls under my jurisdiction too. The air went still. Her fake officers froze, their radios suddenly silent. Karen blinked, trying to process what just happened. You're a cop. She stammered. I leaned in a little. Highway patrol. Been one for 12 years. Now tell me again, who gave you authority to stop vehicles? Her face turned red. This is HOA property. I have the right to enforce order. She yelled, but her voice trembled now. I took one step closer, calm but firm. Then I guess we've got a problem, because impersonating law enforcement carries real time. She started backing away, still holding her clipboard like a shield. The two men with her looked at each other, then quietly drove off in their cart. She tried to keep her pride, mumbling, you'll regret this. I'll call the real police. I smiled faintly. Good, I said. Ask for Officer Cole. That's me. For a second, everything was silent except the buzz of her golf cart engine. Then she panicked, hit the gas, and disappeared down the street. But something told me, this wasn't over. The HOA cop had just picked a fight with the real one. The next morning, I woke up to find a bright orange notice stuck to my garage door. Immediate compliance required, HOA investigation pending. My first thought was, she's really doing this. I peeled it off and saw her signature at the bottom, Karen Miller, HOA Security Chief. Security Chief. I couldn't decide whether to laugh or call the station. But as I turned to head back inside, I noticed something else, tire marks across my lawn. Someone had driven up during the night. Inside, my phone buzzed with a text from my neighbor, Tony, bro, HOA lady was outside your house at 1 a.m. taking pictures. Said you're being investigated. That was it. She wasn't backing down, she was escalating. I decided not to react yet. Instead, I set up my security cameras to record every inch of my driveway and front yard. Years on the highway had taught me, you don't confront, you collect evidence. By evening, I was pulling into my driveway when I saw her again, standing by my mailbox with two men wearing those same neon vests. She pointed at me and said, loud enough for the whole street to hear, there he is. Unauthorized vehicle, same one from last night. I got out slowly, my uniform still on from duty. Karen, I said, keeping my voice calm, you're crossing a line. She smirked, holding a folder. This neighborhood has rules. You think you're above them because you flash a badge? I tilted my head. The badge you tried to copy. That wiped the smile off her face for a second. Then she slapped a document on the hood of my truck. This is a violation notice. The HOA board voted this morning. You have 72 hours to remove this vehicle, or we'll have it towed. That's when the twist hit me. The paper had the HOA seal, and 3 signatures, including my landlord's. She'd gotten to him. You spoke to Mark? I asked. She nodded proudly. He agreed your presence here is causing conflict. We prefer peaceful tenants. I clenched my jaw, trying not to lose it. She thought she'd boxed me in, but she had no idea what she'd just done. Karen, I said quietly, you just involved a law officer in a falsified legal notice. That's tampering with property and intimidation. She crossed her arms. Prove it. I looked up at the camera mounted on my porch, the little red light blinking. Already did. Her eyes flicked toward it. She knew. She knew she'd walked straight into her own trap. But instead of backing off, she smiled coldly and whispered, you think recording me will save you? You have no idea who's on the HOA board. Then she walked away, heels clicking like gunshots against the pavement. That night, I reviewed the footage, every second of her trespassing, threatening, and planting fake documents. But just as I was saving the files, my screen froze. Then it went black. System offline. Someone had hacked my cameras. That's when I realized, Karen wasn't working alone anymore. I sat there staring at the black screen, the small words, connection lost, pulsing in the corner. My security system was encrypted, no one could access it without the admin key. Unless, someone from inside the HOA office had done it. The timing was too perfect. I picked up my phone to call the IT unit at the station, but before I could dial, a notification popped up, your HOA compliance hearing is scheduled for tomorrow at 9 a.m. They were fast. Too fast. It felt like a setup. By the time I pulled into the community clubhouse the next morning, a crowd had already gathered. Cameras, neighbors whispering, and right at the center, Karen, standing like a proud queen, papers in hand. Good morning, Officer Cole, she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. I hope you brought your proof. Her tone was dripping with fake politeness. I looked around. The HOA board members sat behind a long table, all stone-faced. Except one, the man on the far right. He kept avoiding my eyes. His name was Raymond Clark, a retired deputy, fired years ago for evidence tampering. I recognized him immediately. So that's who she had on her side. Karen began her speech, reading from a prepared statement. This resident, she said, waving toward me, has repeatedly violated our HOA traffic safety codes, intimidated officers, and obstructed neighborhood enforcement. People gasped. She even had photos printed, blurry, cropped, clearly edited. We value peace, she continued, and we can't allow unstable behavior in our community. I stood, letting her finish, then placed a small flash drive on the table. Before you pass judgment, I said quietly, you might want to see what your security chief has been doing at night. The room fell silent. I plugged it into the projector, but when I hit play, nothing happened. The file had been erased. Karen smirked, pretending to be surprised. Oh no, she said sweetly, seems like your evidence didn't survive. A few people even laughed. My hands tightened around the edge of the table. That was when Raymond leaned forward, smiling faintly. Officer, he said, we take false accusations very seriously here. Maybe it's best if you just move out. The arrogance was unreal. I took a deep breath, then leaned closer. You sure you want to push this, Ray? I said, keeping my voice steady. Because I still have backup storage, off-site. Karen froze for half a second. You're bluffing, she whispered. I looked her straight in the eye. Try me. The board members started murmuring among themselves. I didn't move, didn't blink. Just watched as Karen's confidence began to crack. And then, from the back of the room, a voice called out, I have something to say. It was Tony, my neighbor. He walked up, holding his phone high. I recorded everything from my window last night, he said. Including her and that ex-deputy breaking into his property. The color drained from Karen's face. Everyone turned. The board demanded to see it. Tony hit play, and there it was. Karen and Raymond caught on video, removing my security DVR and planting documents by my door. The crowd erupted in whispers. The president of the board slammed his hand on the table. Karen, is this real? She stuttered, eyes darting around. That's taken out of context. She snapped. But no one was buying it now. Her fake authority, her lies, all unraveling in front of her own audience. Still, I knew it wasn't over. People like her didn't go down quietly. And I was right, because that same night, I found something even worse. A letter slid under my door, no name, no return address. Just 6 words written in red ink. You should have stayed off our land. I stared at that red ink letter for a long time. The words looked rushed, uneven, like someone wrote them in the dark. My gut told me this wasn't just about HOA drama anymore. This was personal and planned. I slipped the letter into an evidence bag and placed it on my kitchen counter. Then I turned off every light except one. The quiet in my house suddenly felt heavy, like someone was still watching. Around midnight, my motion sensor pinged. I checked my phone camera feed, nothing but darkness. Then the feed glitched, static lines across the screen. And through the blur, I saw it for a split second, a figure standing near my truck. Not moving, just watching. I stepped outside slowly, hand on my holster. Who's out there? I called. Silence. Then, a faint sound, tires screeching in the distance. When I reached my driveway, my heart sank. Someone had carved deep scratches across my patrol truck's side, 4 long marks, like a warning. On the windshield, taped under the wiper, was another note: "You don't belong here, officer." That next morning, I went straight to the county station. I wasn't reporting it as a homeowner anymore, I was reporting it as law enforcement. The chief looked at me over his glasses. "Cole, you sure this isn't just a neighborhood spat?" he asked. I handed him the photos, the letter, the vandalism, the footage Tony captured. His expression changed. "That's not WA behavior," he said quietly. "That's intimidation." Later that day, I drove back home, only to find the WA clubhouse completely empty. No Karen, no Raymond, no staff. Just locked doors and silence. But as I turned to leave, I noticed something taped to the glass, a notice of new ownership. The WA had been acquired by a private property management firm overnight. The signature at the bottom: Raymond Clark. It hit me like a punch. This wasn't about rules or community, it was about land control. They wanted everyone intimidated enough to leave, so they could sell the lots off to developers. Karen wasn't the boss, she was just their face. That evening, Tony came over, pale and nervous. "You should see this," he said, handing me his phone. The video showed a black SUV parked behind the clubhouse. Karen and Raymond were loading boxes into it, WA files, hard drives, everything. And then Karen turned toward the camera, almost like she knew someone was watching, and smiled. "She's running," I muttered. But I also knew, if they were trying to bury evidence, it meant something big was coming. I decided to act before they could. I called a friend from the cybercrime unit, told him to trace the security system access logs from my house. 2 hours later, he called back. "Cole," he said, "you might want to sit down. The remote access to your system came from a government-registered IP address, owned by the county zoning department." My chest went cold. That's when it all clicked. The WA, the fake enforcement, the intimidation, it all led to one thing: a government-backed land grab. And Karen was just the puppet. I looked at the letter again: "You should have stayed off our land." It wasn't a threat. It was a warning from people who thought they already owned everything. I barely slept that night. Every sound made me check the windows. Every passing car felt like someone circling the house. But fear wasn't what kept me awake, it was the anger. I wasn't going to be bullied off my land by fake cops in a crooked WA. They'd played this game for too long. It was time to end it. At sunrise, I drove straight to the county office. I walked in wearing my full highway patrol uniform, camera pinned to my chest, everything recording. The same clerk who'd ignored me before suddenly froze when she saw my badge. "I need access to the property transfer files for Maple Ridge WA," I said flatly. She stammered, "Es sir, that's restricted." I cut her off. "Then restrict this," I said, placing a signed subpoena on the counter. I wasn't just a homeowner now, I was officially investigating them. 10 minutes later, I had the files. And there it was, the smoking gun. Every property sold under the HOA's name had been quietly rerouted to one shell company, Ridgeview Development LLC. And guess who was listed as vice president? Karen Miller. The woman pretending to be a neighborhood enforcement officer was running an entire fraud operation under the HOA's name. I called Tony and told him to meet me at the clubhouse. When we got there, the doors were unlocked. Papers were scattered everywhere, computers gone, the place stripped. But on the desk sat one last file, a list of residents, pending removal. My name was at the top. Tony's was second. "This was never about rules," I said quietly. "It's about clearing the land." Just then, we heard tires crunching outside. Karen's black SUV rolled up, followed by Raymond's truck. They didn't look surprised to see us, more like they were waiting. Karen stepped out, sunglasses on, voice sharp as ever. "You just don't know when to quit, do you?" I hit record on my chest cam. "Funny, I said, I was about to say the same thing. She smirked. You think anyone cares? The HOA owns this property. You have no jurisdiction here. That's when I held up the documents I'd taken from the county office. Actually, I said, this entire HOA was dissolved last month. You've been operating under a fake charter. Her smile cracked. You're lying, she hissed. No, I said, stepping closer. But you were. Raymond moved like he was about to grab me, but before he could, two police cruisers pulled up behind them. Real cops. My unit. The look on Karen's face was priceless, disbelief turning into pure panic. One of the officers stepped forward. Karen Miller and Raymond Clark, he said firmly, you're under arrest for fraud, property theft, and impersonation of law enforcement. Karen tried to protest, shouting that this was all a misunderstanding, but no one was listening anymore. The neighbors had come out to watch. Phones were recording. The same woman who used to bark HOA rules was now being cuffed on her own fake turf. As they led her to the cruiser, she turned back toward me. You think this ends with me? She yelled. You can't stop what's coming. I didn't answer. I just looked at her and said, I don't have to stop it. I just have to expose it. Later, when the dust settled, the county announced a full investigation into Ridgeview development. Every homeowner who'd been harassed or evicted got their property rights restored. The news ran the story for days, fake HOA busted by highway patrol officer. That night, Tony came over with 2 beers and a grin. So, he said, what happens to the neighborhood now? I looked out at the quiet street, the flags swaying gently in the evening wind. Maybe, I said, it finally belongs to the people who live here. For the first time in weeks, I felt the peace Karen had tried so hard to fake. And as I shut my porch light off, I couldn't help but smile, because justice doesn't always knock on the door. Sometimes, it pulls you over. Viral line. Greater than, she tried to arrest me with fake cops, too bad I'm the real one.